Oh boy, it's time to read some blogs about the future of Destiny 2. Hello, it's Mike here for Helmet Tower. You're getting one of these style of videos because Bungie dropped like 5 different blogs on us in one day going over what the future of Destiny is, and mainly focusing on codename Frontiers. So Frontiers, if you kind of don't really understand what's going on, Frontiers is basically the code name for like the multi-year plan for Destiny that are now learning. Not necessarily just codename Frontiers does not mean like this is the next expansion's codename. Like this is talking about Destiny's plan for the coming years as we get into this thing after the episodes end next year. And this is kind of giving us our first look. I kind of went through some of the blogs a little bit just so I could kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with. And there's just a lot of stuff. It's a lot to cover. So I'm going to do my best to kind of read through it, but I think I will also try and kind of abbreviate some of this stuff just because it's so much to take in. I'm still kind of like going through the process of all of it myself. But let's just do our best. We're in this together. Strap in. This is probably going to be a slightly longer video than some other stuff. And I want to do this too because I think there's some blogs and big information coming out for some other games I cover here on the channel regarding kind of like news and stuff like that soon here. So let's just get into this. Let's see. They're paving the way for new frontiers. So today, the day we're recording this is the 10-year anniversary of Destiny. As a franchise, this is the day Destiny 1 launched. It's been 10 years. It's pretty wild that we've made it this far, and now they're outlining what is next for Destiny 2 and all this stuff. Now they're going this, and here we have it. We have a roadmap. It's kind of cut off from because of how I have this cropped, but you can kind of see it here better. In essence, it's going to be going to 2 expansions a year. Think of the expansions, so they kind of outline what expansion is going to mean now, and that is going to have new stories, new locations, new missions, new weapons, new gear, and new raids and dungeons. So they kind of have an overview of there, but it sounds like we're still going to be getting like kind of like story-based missions and other kinds of things like that. Of course, like new weapons and gear. Of course, as we always get with the new kind of expansion releases, new raids and dungeons is definitely the vaguer one where it's like, okay, so I mean, when we get an expansion, we're going to get a raid and a dungeon at the same time, or will we get it kind of like split between that, where like maybe a raid will come near the release of an expansion, like we usually get it like a week or two after, then maybe later down in this kind of timeline of expansions we'll get a dungeon as well. Don't really know that part. That's something they didn't really explain here in these blogs, I'll say, so that's definitely a confusing point. But basically how it's going to work now is we have the episodes we're in now, right? So episode Revenant is going to kick off in about a month. It's early October. We'll go through that. Then we'll have episode, I believe it's Heresy with the Hive stuff. That's going to go till summer 2025, and that's going to go out. And then summer 2025 is when we're going to get the first expansion, which is codenamed Apollo right now, as you can see on this thing. That when that starts, that is going to be that new expansion release with the new stuff. It's going to have like a reward pass or a season pass like we have now, and we're also going to be there's going to be a season that launches with that is going to be available to all. It seems like the season is going to be basically like a free thing now for players to just play now rather than buying into it. And then midway through that season, we'll get a second major update. So it says, summer 2025 is the first update. That's when an expansion launches, and then later fall 2025. We're getting a second major update to that, and that'll bring a new season. That'll bring a new reward pass specifically to earn. So it seems like that stuff will be free for all players. Anything related to the season, maybe not the reward pass, maybe the reward passes will be things you have to like buy into still. We'll just have to see how that works out. But the expansion itself will probably be like a new paid expansion. And then you can see winter 2025 is when a second expansion is going to come out, and that will bring a new release, a new kind of start of a new season. And then the spring 2026 will be the next major update within that like expansion / season kind of area. So definitely kind of like it sounds like, you know, oh, we're getting 2 expansions a year. That sounds like a lot more than we're getting, but then keep in mind, like, it sounds like the seasonal offerings in between those is going to be way less. So definitely a lot of questions there, right? Like, you know, keep in mind this stuff is all a year plus out. This is summer of next year, so we still have a lot of time between now and then, and I'm sure we'll have like a more proper, like, you know, expansion sort of reveal stream closer to that, maybe when like episode 3 Heresy starts, which I think is like, you know, early next year probably is when we'll maybe start getting some of this more. It's like something like a stream or like a reveal like that, right? For whatever this first expansion is. They kind of give us some more details about the expansion in these blogs, so I'll kind of keep going through, at least from like a story perspective or how the content will kind of be introduced. They definitely have a lot of changes. A lot of the overview I'll kind of give you for these blogs that they have is like kind of looking more at the fundamental core aspects of Destiny 2 and the changes they can make to it. And as somebody who's played a lot of Destiny 2 and still likes the game, definitely kind of have some mixed feelings about, you know, the current like episode structure and stuff like that. But as you can see here, that's going to be changing with Frontiers in this expansion regardless, and it's going to be a slightly different rollout. Like for me, the vibe I'm getting is like this feels a lot like Destiny 2 Year 1, but now they're still kind of taking the like sort of more modern structures of seasons and kind of applying some of that stuff in between these 2 like bigger releases, because like we know with these 2 expansions coming next year, there'll be new destinations and presumably new raids, dungeons with them as well. Whether or not like how those are released within those, we don't really know yet. If it'll be like across that period of time for each or not, like, you know, that'll probably be all solidified as we get closer. But that's kind of the vibe we're getting, where expansion is still going to be story content, a new destination to go to with new weapons and gear and missions and things to do, and there will be a new raid with that. So we're going to be getting those 2 a year going forward, 1 in the summer, 1 in the winter. It seems like that is going to be sort of the cadence going forward. We'll just, you know, that's what next year is going to be. I kind of don't mind this change. You know, obviously, like I keep saying, there's still a lot of things unknown about it because it's, you know, a year out. But I think the idea of having, you know, still big beats to like jump in and check out new Destiny stuff when it drops and play and kind of, you know, get back with friends, you know, or my clanmates and stuff, and play through new content, and then have sort of a bigger gap there to like go do other stuff. I'm kind of fine with myself personally. I know it's like maybe some content creators might be a little bit less excited about that, depending on, you know, I can understand from like you know, that their livelihood on content based around this game like is, you know, going to be tough now. I think tougher than it ever has been before, and I think that some people might have worse feelings about that overall. But I think, you know, I think this is just, you know, it makes sense from a Destiny perspective and the game perspective as somebody who just plays it. You know, I obviously am now sort of a content creator or whatever on this channel, but I don't make fucking money from this. I don't really, I don't have an opinion on any of that shit. So like, I just, you know, I personally am just, you know, just being real with you, and just as somebody who still kind of just plays it to have fun when I want to, it makes sense. And like, I think this change is fine with me. But let's keep going. There's 3 smaller blogs that kind of go into some core game stuff, because that's like a big thing with a lot of this, is they're looking at core game activities and the core game rewards, and they're also introducing something called the portal. They did say the portal is kind of a TBD name. It could change later on, but the idea of the portal, to just put it simply, because there's so much to go over and I don't want to spend all the time, and it's still going to be something that evolves probably when we see it later in the game, is like, you know, it is going to be kind of maybe replacing the destination map in the game as it is now. Because if you look at the destination map, you know, if somebody's played a lot, you know, you can make sense of it because you've been looking at it for so many years. But like a new player, they have no idea what a lot of that means, and there's just like a lot to parse through, and like how many layers deep do you have to do to get to an activity or do this, or which activity matters right now in this moment, and other things like that. And any given season and coming back to the game, it can definitely be a lot, and probably cumbersome to some newer players. So it seems like the idea, or at least the concept of the portal, is to basically have like a hub, like this is, you can just go to this menu, essentially a hub to tell you like, hey, here's like an easy way to just jump into activities that can be for if you're just playing solo, or you have a group of friends and maybe you want to jump into activities or the more challenging stuff, or like, hey, here's this current season or expansion has dropped, here's activities that are related to those, and you want to just jump into them and see that stuff. You can just kind of easily navigate right to that stuff through that portal, essentially. Seems like is what they're trying to do. And I think that's good, especially for like newer players and people who are trying to, you know, figure out what's going on in the game, and potentially for like kind of returning players too. Like, I think, you know, the game is constantly changing, so I think it can be tricky as like somebody who hasn't jumped into the game in like a year and a half, and then they jump in and there's all these new weird things and you're just like, huh, what do I need to be doing right now? I don't know. Like, I think maybe the portal is maybe going to be the answer to that. You know, again, but they didn't really give a specific time frame of when that's being introduced in the game. I'm guessing it's going to be mainly when this Codename Apollo expansion drops next summer. Maybe that's what they're kind of planning that for. We'll just have to see. Let's keep going here. Let's see our vision of the future of Destiny 2. There's some really cool concept art. I like that a lot. Looking good there with some, you know, some guys hanging out on their speeders. Looks like some servitors ruined. I wonder if that's supposed to be. Now I'm thinking, because you're seeing like servitor ruins and other things like that. I wonder if that's supposed to be Reese, the Hive planet. And there you can see like the kind of campground vibe of them kind of exploring a new frontier. Because I think that's kind of what everybody's been assuming when you say frontiers. And, you know, if you played any bit of Echoes, one of the first things they kind of introduced you is the idea of leaving the solar system that we're in currently. So I think that is going to be kind of what Frontiers is us. Each expansion is going to be us like visiting a new destination and having a story with it. That's what I'm kind of guessing, at least. Well, obviously we have to wait and see what it actually is, but, you know, seeing this and, you know, talking about things never seen before in Destiny is definitely a lot of what's talked about in the blogs and stuff. So let's see. Here is Tyson Green, the now director of Destiny 2. Some words from him about annual expansions and other stuff like this. Let's just get into this. So my name is Tyson Green. I'm the game director for Destiny 2. I'm excited to speak today about our team's vision for Destiny. First and foremost, we all still love Destiny. It is a unique and challenging game for you and for us. I've personally been working on Destiny for 15 years, and it still excites me creatively. There are not many games I could say that about. But at the same time, we recognize that it has become too rigid, expansions have started to feel too formulaic, and over too quickly with little replay value. Seasons and episodes keep getting bigger, but can still feel like you are just going through the motions. We believe it's time for Destiny to change and evolve, and that our community wants this game to grow and innovate too. Yes, agreed. And to do that, we need to start breaking some of the molds. So let's start with annual expansions. We love creating annual expansions and are especially proud of the final shape. But the truth is that they dominate all of our development effort. We need to free ourselves up to explore and innovate how we deliver Destiny 2 content so we can invest in areas of the game that will feel more impactful to players. Starting next year, instead of one big expansion, we are going to deliver 2 medium-sized expansions, one every 6 months. Each of these will depart from the one-shot campaign structure we've been using, essentially unchanged since Shadowkeep. Each will be an opportunity to explore exciting new formats instead. We are excited to try new things that challenge the idea of what Destiny experience can be. We're actively prototyping non-linear campaigns, exploration experiences similar to the Dreaming City or Metroidvanias, and even more unusual formats like roguelites or survival shooters. Each expansion will present a new opportunity to try something different. Departing from one-shot campaigns doesn't mean we are turning away from great storytelling. Going forward, we want to return the mystery and wonder that was woven into the fabric of early Destiny, when the story felt ripe with possibilities and an epic sense of exploration and discovery. Great stories are as important as ever in our creative vision, and Allison will touch on that more below. So yeah, that all sounds pretty great from, like, you know, he's talking from a high level here, but the idea of just not having a typical kind of single player campaign or shooter campaign in an expansion, and it kind of being a different style of storytelling, like they said, non-linear, or it being like a Metroidvania where I can see that idea of like you get to a destination and you're like acquiring new abilities or powers or whatever to interact with things and opening up new pathways and things you never knew you could open because of stuff like that. Cool. I like that. I like that. Let's keep reading here. So let's see. With the change to 2 expansions per year, our seasonal model will be changing as well. Instead of 3 episodes, we'll be building 4 major updates per year, 1 every 3 months. Each expansion will launch alongside a major update at the start of the season, and the second major update will follow 3 months later to refresh the core game with new and reprised content, including activities, which will be strikes, exotic missions, and entirely new modes like Onslaught, rewards, weapons, armor, artifact mods, exotics, and more, new weekly events, new features, and combat, meta, and balance updates. The big seasonal reset will still happen, but now twice a year alongside the expansions. Each update will be a substantial refresh of the core game, bringing new activities and reward content. We are also excited to announce that, like Destiny 2 Into Light, that these updates and their content will be free to all players. We want Destiny to be easier for anyone to play or recommend, so we want to remove that major barrier to the experience, which means we need to talk about the core game itself. Okay, so let's stop there before we move on too much. So this sounding like we're going to have the expansions, 2 expansions each year. And those are essentially going to be like, the paid content for the year. But now it sounds like seasons going forward, which are going to be smaller in scope for sure, but they will have bring stuff like new strikes or exotic missions or even new modes, but they're going to be free now. So seasons are just free content now going forward. That's like a big change. That sounds like that's a big fundamental change, right? Like that makes me think of I guess the monetizing of the game now will be the expansions. And they didn't mention that there'll be on the initial thing they said there were going to be reward passes. So maybe that's what you have to purchase now, and then the actual content you can play through in the game will be free. But that won't necessarily be like story content like it is now, where now you get like weekly story content, or with episodes you get like the kind of acts that bring you big seasonal beats and storylines. So it sounds like that stuff might be going away, but it seems like there'll be more focus on the core game stuff we're doing every week, like strikes and Crucible, and now like exotic missions, and obviously like story or new modes rather, like Onslaught and stuff. So it sounds like we won't really see many big massive story things in these seasons going forward. At least that's the vibe I'm getting. And maybe that's the way they can kind of scale back how they're producing stuff and also make it like free for everybody to easily enjoy. So yeah, that's definitely a huge pivot, right? Like a big change. It sounds like it definitely makes it sound right. Like Destiny is going in back to this sort of model where it's like, hey, here's like a good time to jump in and play during this time of the year. And then, you can kind of play and experience this stuff. And then you're okay to like kind of leave for a little bit until the next expansion hits, or maybe one of these smaller updates hit and maybe you want to check it out and do that. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this. I don't necessarily dislike that by any means, but it's definitely different. Again, a lot of stuff is still pretty far out, so it's hard to know how well it'll hit until we kind of really see it truly, with a bigger reveal of we know what the actual expansion's about and if it's intriguing, right? Still a lot of question marks with some of this stuff, but it also sounds really promising. Like the fact that they're saying new strikes can be just dropping throughout seasons throughout the year alone, like they name drop that, is nice to hear, because like we get that so little now. Right, we got one strike with the final shape. I'm assuming we're probably not going to see any more until this next summer, right? So I think that's just that's too long of a gap for like core activity stuff like that, in my opinion. So them looking at those kind of seasons as ways to update the core stuff more than just adding some throwaway seasonal mode that can be like dropped in and then you're going to forget about it in a few weeks. Like I kind of like that, but at least putting a little bit more focus on those things rather than having it be all on seasonal stuff only. So yeah, let's talk about the core game. They have 2 big things here about the core game. One is approachability. First, Destiny is too complex. With literally hundreds of activities, you practically need a PhD to decide what to play and how to get rewards. We're going to fix this by modernizing our activity UI, the director, to make it easier for everyone to find and launch integrate activities, and working a reward model to make sure that all of those activities offer meaningful rewards. our deep dives into activities and rewards. We'll go in there. So they have their dev deep dives. We'll get to those. There's still a lot of stuff to go into in this blog alone. So let's try and keep going here. Gear and challenge should matter. Even great activities stop mattering if the challenge drives up and the rewards aren't worth it. So we're investing in a greatly improved challenge customization system to let players of any skill range find the right challenge level for them, with rewards that improve based on the challenge level you take on. These won't just be simple incoming damage increases either. The team is cooking up some great gameplay modifiers that give enemies some exciting tools to mix things up on every run. We will have a deep dive coming soon to show off some of these new threats. As for the rewards, there will still be higher tiers of the legendary gear. Think adept weapons and armors will be available from these higher challenge ranges, and it's a wider variety of activities across both PvE and PvP. These two changes will help the core game experience be easier to drop into and much deeper in terms of variety and pursuit and personal mastery, and they are a starting point of the ongoing changes aimed to continue to improve Destiny in these regards. Yeah, that sounds great. More I read through the core game. I believe it was the rewards, a tab that kind of went over it, or actually it was core game activities. They're kind of talking here. They talked about the portal, and this portal is kind of the whole idea of like, here's an easier way to go in here. So you have solo ops. That's just if you want to just play activities by yourself. There'll be fire team ops, which is like if you have a party, or you want to group up with people, you can do that. And then pinnacle ops is like a more challenging version of that. Event will be probably related to like seasonal stuff, and then there's also the crucible as well, and then you can see there's tower, and then like kind of the main expansion. So like, you know, they're clearly trying to make a more simplified menu to kind of direct people towards certain things across the board. And then they talked about this like more granular customization of challenges, and then you can see these are clearly very early in progress menus and ideas and concepts and stuff. But it seems like there's going to be like a way more granular way to do modifiers. So you can see there's like different tiers of expert, and they are at different power levels. It's interesting. You can see the power levels like 300 and 400 here. So I wonder if they're going to do like a power like number reset and scale reset or something potentially with this. That's kind of wild. Who knows? It could just be all placeholder stuff, of course. But, you know, I'm going to try and like, you know, give you like a abbreviated version of this, reading this blog. But basically the idea is like, you know, you can see as you go into higher expert tiers, and then you can go into like master and grandmaster tiers, it lets you kind of more modularly choose the kind of difficulty modifiers you do. And as you add those onto it, that increases the rewards you get and the drops you get. So you can have more loot drops, you know, get more certain kinds of rewards, get more, you know, pinnacle gears, exotic gear, all that kind of stuff. And it's all tied into like reward ratings and other things like that. There'll be like a whole like rating system and how you perform as well in that stuff. And then, you know, certain difficulty tiers like grandmaster and expert and these things still exist, but they will be a little bit more granular, letting you modify how those are, is essentially what's going to be happening. And I think that's like a really cool change. You know, they kind of talk about it high level, so they don't really give specifics on like what potential challenges or at what specific tier. That seems like that they'll probably talk about that later when it's a more kind of finalized thing, because again, all the stuff is super kind of early in dev. This is probably like the earliest they've kind of shown us this concept before, I feel like, in game, which is kind of very interesting. I kind of like that they're doing this, like showing us stuff this early, and as they're kind of working on it. So we'll see how they they probably will talk about this stuff again in the future, right? And how they've improved on it and what they want to do with it. But I like this idea of having more granular choice in the difficulty. I like that quite a bit. Let's get back to the main blog here. Looks like we're talking about the multi-year saga starts with codename Apollo. So we're talking with Allison Lurs here. Hello, I'm Allison, and I'm the Destiny 2 narrative director. I'm a fresh face at Bungie. I started doing narrative direction for seasons in fall 2022, and my first Destiny 2 expansion was the Final Shape. So, you know, that's a pretty high pedigree. Her first expansion that she was like helped do the direction of the narrative and all that kind of stuff, like, was Final Shape, and it's people consider one of the best Destiny expansions, and so that she was a part of that, a big part of that, being like directing the narrative and stuff. So very cool. I think that gives her a lot of good praise. So, you know, we know that with Light and Darkness Saga, she's kind of, I think, goes into here talking about, you know, what's next for this, and let's kind of read a little bit here. Let's see. We're proud of the final shape and the ending we created for the Light and Darkness saga, and we knew that the episodes that would follow would act as an epilogue, tying up Light and Darkness hanging threads, but also setting up for what's next. The episodes close doors and open new ones, purposeful ones, storylines that are set in place to prepare us for what's to come next. You'll see teases of that later in the later 2 episodes, and they fully kick in with Codename Apollo. This next saga is based around a core theme, much like Light and Darkness did. It will introduce plenty of new characters, factions, twists, and more. There's a lot more here. We will say eventually. We don't want to spoil the journey for you. This will be a multi-year journey, one that we can't wait to take you on. So it seems like Codename Apollo will really kick off the next, like they said, multi-year journey for Destiny 2 and give us like the real like narrative, kind of our narrative drive, so to speak. So let's see. What do we mean by Codename Apollo being non-linear? Previously in stories like The Final Shape, you experience a story from B to C to D in a nice straight line. In Codename Apollo, our story takes place over dozens of threads you'll explore and discover. So when you land on a brand new location, the story starts at A, and then you can choose if you want to explore C first, or try to get into B, or maybe even investigate D. And the options you didn't choose, don't worry, those other options are still open for you to go back and play through. And you'll need to, because the more you play and discover, the more the story progresses. So experiencing a certain number of threads opens up the next part of the story. Yeah, so that's really cool. So basically it is more like player driven, how you were kind of unlocking and navigating the story. And if we're kind of going off this, the sort of concepts that we think we're going, where we're leaving kind of the Sol system and going onto new planets, the idea of like landing on a new planet we've never been on before and allowing us to kind of explore it how we want to and kind of unravel these storylines that way sounds really cool, and also sounds very different from what we've experienced from an expansion. So that in of itself is very exciting. Like, it just seems like clearly a new way to experience what a Destiny expansion could be and can be. And I think that's like one way of like making the game feel different and new. I really like that. I'm looking forward to that. And we're gonna get in that's next year, so we'll have to see how that goes. But that's kind of largely what they kind of go over here. I'm kind of just glossing through here to see if there's any kind of other tidbits worth mentioning. But I think this you largely get it. We largely get it from here, right? Like, this all sounds super promising. Let's kind of jump into a couple other blogs here. I can just shout out. I think we went over. This is for rewards. These are some changes coming to the core game rewards. The core game expansion and event activities will feature a reworked reward offering that provides a deeper reward chase across a wider range of activities. Weapons and armor will be available in a deeper range of quality across a wider range of activities. Core game activities will have dedicated reward pools for different categories of activities, and gear will be labeled a new gear during the season it is introduced, and it's easy to organize and build craft around. Yeah, I think that last bit was like good for like new players. Like, that makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, like me as a longtime player, I can look at little like season symbols that are next to guns or pieces of armor and be like, oh yeah, that was from that season, that's why that made sense here, or yada yada. Like, this is an older gun, is it really worthwhile for new? And now, especially now that we've like they've essentially shut off sunsetting and brought back a bunch of older guns. Like, a lot of those older guns don't have like current perks or aren't craftable, and like jumping into the game right now, like none of that means anything to you. So like parsing through a lot of that stuff can be a lot. So I could see them making it be like, hey, these are the new things for the new thing that just came out. Like, that makes sense. Yeah. So let's see. This is their solution for a lot of these things they want to do. Weapon and armor tiers. Legendary weapons and armors will now be available in a deeper range of quality tiers that layer on properties like stat bonuses, enhanced perks, or other benefits. For weapons, this will be similar to how adept weapons upgrade the baseline and legendary. So you can see from the screenshot here, yeah, like they're basically taking the enhancing weapons to like another level, where you can not only enhance like perks like outlaw kill clip, you can also enhance like the perks and like guns and barrels and mag sizes and even the origin perk, and that increases its stats and changes it as well. So that's pretty cool. So that's, you can see it. I think that says tier 5 is supposed to show that like that's the tier the weapon is at, if it's at its highest tier or not. So it seems like they're in the same way they're giving more granular things to change and enhance the challenge in the game, they're also incorporating that with weapons even further, where they're going to be more enhanceable and like more things like that. And like the higher tiers of weapons and armor will be available from the full range of core game activities or rewards for higher challenge tiers and mastery of those activities. So basically, you know, if you're going into Grandmaster, you have a better chance at getting weapons with probably these kind of different varying ranges and higher tiers and stuff like that. And I think that also potentially gives a way for them to like make these weapons matter more in a like non-crafting versus non-crafting chase, right? Like these guns might, like you might not be able to enhance this stuff on certain crafting things, or maybe crafting will be changing. I'm curious if they go into that, because I know there's a lot of people who personally don't like how crafting has made some of the end game sort of chase and drive to get better rewards like less meaningful in some ways. I personally don't feel that way. I like being able to not have to run something 800 times just to get the one thing I want. Now it's like I can kind of have a more direct path to the thing I want. It can still take some time to like get rewards, and I'm somebody who, like, if you're a player who can has like a regular team and can raid multiple times a week, or like have like a team that's like willing to like, oh yeah, I can just spend half a day or like play till 3 a.m. to do that. Like I get it. Like being able to get a crafted thing is like 5 times easier for you compared to like somebody like me who's like, I might be able to only raid like 2 or 3 times a week, but I would still like these things, and I don't think I should be left behind and feel like I'm being left out, even though I can still play a decent amount in certain styles of content and activity all the time, due to being adults with normal life schedules and not being people like Discord gremlins or whatever, or content creator gremlins. Let's see. Here's some of the reward pools. So the major core game reward pools will be updated in every major update. So that's like, when a season and expansion drops, and then also when basically like a half season drop happens, like they'll get kind of refreshed. So there'll be the core PvE rewards that'll be shared among activities like strikes. So I'm guessing that means like strikes and onslaught and some of these other, like, I guess core PvE things will have like, their kind of loot pool now going forward. And then there will be a PvP loot pool, and there'll be pinnacle PvE rewards. They're shared among intrinsically challenging PvE activities like dungeons. And there will also be PvP rewards among intrinsically challenging PvP activities like trials. And I'm guessing like, Iron Banner will still have its own rewards and things like that. So every expansion also contains 2 full reward pools. So there'll be expansion and story rewards, and then there will be expansion, raid, and dungeon rewards as well. In addition to these above pools, some activities like events may have additional exclusive, such as individual weapon or armor sets. And then they also show, here's a preview of what the new gear. So like when a new gear is a new item for the new season, it'll kind of be more highlighted in there as well. So let's see, okay, here they mentioned in this fact here about old gear being sunset and also weapon crafting. So let's read these. Does new gear mean old gear is being sunset? No, not at all. Existing gear remains unchanged and ready for use in any activity except those set aside for experimenting with new gear. It can be infused to achieve the same power and as newly introduced gear. The only specific advantage to using new gear will be some artifact synergies comparable to origin trait upgrades found on existing artifacts. So like basically it'll still benefit you to use newer weapons in a new season or like a new expansion, because there'll be seasonal artifact perks and mods and things that'll benefit those weapons a little bit more for that season. But you'll still be able to use a lot of the older gear you still have, and they won't have plans to sunset any current weapon. I think it'll just kind of be how it's been more recently, where it's kind of like a soft sunsetting, where like, a lot of the weapons that are probably coming out more recently and these newer updates will probably be able to be more enhanceable than the ones we previously have had. So that'll kind of make it feel like the new weapons are more worthwhile to go get. So like, I think that'll still be a thing. Let's see what's happening with weapon crafting. Weapon crafting is not going away and will continue to be a way to craft a specific role of a weapon. Our intent is for crafting going forward to provide a catch-up mechanism for roles you weren't able to nab from the original sources. This may be because that source is no longer available or was gated by lockout when it was. But ultimately, we want crafting to support the weapon chase and not replace it. We'll follow up with more details in a future article. That's definitely interesting there. I kind of hope it doesn't mean that, it's all going, like that they're kind of going to be time gating crafting. to make it like that's going to be their workaround, is being like, well, when this stuff first comes out, you're just going to have to grind for it if you want, and then like in a few weeks you'll be able to just unlock it or whatever. That would kind of suck in my opinion. I hope they have like a better way to make that feel like a progression. Like, hey, maybe, you know, there's like a different avenue route than just getting red borders to craft a weapon. Maybe they can make some other pursuit, or maybe you have to get a weapon and maybe you have to use it a certain amount, and that lets you unlock the ability to craft it. Like I would be okay with something like that, right? Like, because that makes it so like, hey, you still might want to just get the roll you want from it and then use it a bunch, and then you can craft it, and then you can use the crafting to enhance it, and that's like an avenue you can go down to do that. That would be a method I would be okay with personally, because that also means like, hey, as long as you can just get one of them, even if it's not the roll you want, just use it a bunch for a little while, and then you can craft the thing you want. Like, I'd be fine with that if like that's kind of like the sort of I guess sort of negotiation or implementing tactics. I know some people wouldn't like that because it's like, oh, now you're forcing you to use a version of the weapon I don't like, but like at least it gives like, you know, it brings some of the chase back, which I think some people are asking for. So I'd be willing to go for that. So one thing I wanted to pull up here as well, I think it was in activities, or was it, or maybe it was in the portal. Yeah, it's in this portal blog that I wanted to skim to, because, you know, I talked a lot about core activities and core things changing in that last blog. It talked a lot about PvP, and I talked about like PvE, and it didn't talk about a certain core activity that is really integral to the game. You've not seen it mentioned a lot, and that is Gambit. So I definitely had this thing I was kind of reading through a little bit of this about like what's happening. Okay, Gambit's not really being mentioned at all a lot. What's happening here? They answer that question in this Dev Insight portal blog. What about Gambit? Gambit will remain available from the destination map, but will not be rolled into the portal categories at the start of next year. We're still figuring out our plan for this beloved game mode, and we still have some ideas ranging from closer integration into the Crucible category to standalone events that feature it. So it seems like there's going to be truly less emphasis on Gambit going forward. Like they were not going to consider it a core activity or core thing in the game anymore. It seems like they eventually might be wrapping it into PvP more. What that means, I don't fully know. Like, I don't know if that means like, oh, they're going to be sort of sunsetting Gambit, but they're going to be making sort of like they're going to be repurposing the idea of the mode into like a PvP, where there's like maybe they like make Gambit on traditional PvP maps, and you just have like nodes that you're like dunking moats into to like make like enemies or something, or give you like bonuses or something. I don't know. The other idea they said where it could be like a seasonal like event style thing, I'd be okay with too, where basically it is like an Iron Banner where it's like, hey, 2 weeks, these 2 weeks you gotta go play some Gambit if you want, and you can have at it if you're still a Gambit freak sicko. Like, I'm fine with that too. I think this makes sense. Like, come on, like, let's be real, they've really not meaningfully touched Gambit in so long, and I really don't want them at this point where it seems like obviously they're clearly like scaling back on stuff. As good as this stuff sounds, it seems like they're trying to focus on like some of the fundamental things people really come to this game for, which is like the core PvE experience and the core PvP experience. And I think like Gambit has always kind of been the sort of redheaded stepchild of those, for lack of a better term. I think that this is the right move to focus more on these activities instead of like being like, hey, let's neglect one of these things people are really truly playing the game for to try and make this thing work. And I think it's just a lost cause at that point, going that hard on the mode. So I think the idea of like them making it maybe like some kind of regular event that's like Iron Banner, where like, hey, maybe it just becomes like, yeah, it's like a Gambit week, and like you have an Iron Banner week, and you have just like, you can go play some Gambit for a little bit, and it's that mode still, and maybe they'll make some changes, or maybe they'll give you like a couple extra little weapon, like a weapon here or there, or something simple, and then just leave it at that. Like, I think that's a totally fine way to have Gambit still be in the game for people who like the small base that really wants it, but like don't really have to treat it as this thing that they really need to treat as like a proper core thing. I think like they just need to make the PvE stuff matter, and refresh a lot of the core weekly stuff we want to do with PvP, like strikes, and then also for people who want Crucible changes and stuff like that too. They should just do that. So that's the right move in my opinion. All right, those are all the kind of blogs I've kind of given my thoughts throughout this. I think that is yeah, I think I've given generally a pretty good idea of what I think. I really like all these changes. They sounded like promising. Obviously, they're still a ways away because a lot of the stuff we probably won't really see in the game properly till Codename Apollo, the expansion next summer, kicks off. I'm sure we'll be getting more information on all this stuff into next year and into next summer and all that stuff. And I'm sure we'll get like a more proper reveal of whatever this expansion is going to be closer to that time next year. I'm looking forward to all this stuff. This is something I think the game has needed for a while, and I think a lot of people will agree with me that like we've just kind of been waiting to hear about, you know, them wanting to like make fundamental changes to the core game we're playing every day, and not just kind of like, you know, what they've been doing for a good while, which is like they kind of bolt a season onto this and be like, look, here's all the new stuff you can do. Here's seasonal content and event and the story, and like it's all the stories leading to a big moment in the future of the franchise and leading towards the final shape and this big moment that's what we've had for so many years. And obviously now that that's over, we don't really have that. So I think the idea of like, if we're going to be having these smaller expansions to start kind of plotting the threads, and then between that, we're getting bigger updates to like the core of the game to make it feel fresher. That's what we like truly need right now. They recognize that, and that's what they're working towards with like all the things they kind of talked about, right? Like having or like delineation towards challenge, bringing some of the chase back and having more challenging things to do, having more direct ways to like get to like the stuff you want to be doing right now in the game for newer players, having more free content to just have to allow people to like try out stuff in the game. Like that's kind of all that these blogs really kind of talked about and brought up. So I really like everything they're kind of putting forward here. You know, I know obviously we're gonna go back and we're gonna soon be, you know, hearing about the next episode Revenant, and a little bit they've shown about it seems pretty promising, but like I don't expect it to be a grand departure from like a massively grand departure from what we got in the first episode, you know what I mean? So I think we're obviously still going to be in a little bit of a lull building up to next year's Code Frontiers and the beginning of Frontiers and Code Apollo, and I think that's going to be a really bigger moment to see where we're going with Destiny. But everything they laid out here sounds super promising, and that kind of is definitely getting me excited again for just Destiny. Because, you know, I feel like I was in a similar moment where it's just like, I don't really know where stuff's going either. And I feel like this was a good way to kind of show this stuff, even though it's all very early and we still have a ways to go. Lastly, you know, just, you know, again, going off of, it's been 10 years of Destiny. I know we'll say it's not been here for all 10 years of Destiny, but I played since 2017. When Destiny 2 launched, so I've been a part of it. It's been a part of my life for a good while, so seeing it's made it all its way to 10 years is pretty awesome. And, you know, just to give you a general kind of quick glance, like they have a little bit of art from the team. They're doing some kind of art tour that's going to be in some major cities like Los Angeles, New York, and London. So if you're in those areas, get that. But here's the big thing. Starting today, the day all this information dropped, we're going to be able to start celebrating the 10th anniversary in game, and you're going to be able to go and get some cool armor sets. You can see them here. They are based off of like literally like original concept armor shown for Destiny years and years ago. Now it's going to be actual armor in game you can go acquire. It is free, so you just have to say, they say it here, it says earn each armor set can be found starting today, September 9th, when exploring the surroundings of the tower in the Pale Heart. So you can just go into the Pale Heart and start getting these. The other thing we have is a new title. So the actual legend title and seal will be available starting today as well. That will just, you know, be like any other seal or title where you can do some challenges and other things in game. Some will be retroactive, like it says, completing the legendary campaign. You won't have to do it again. So if you've already done that, that will be unlocked as well. And so that's just one thing, but there'll be some other stuff too. You can get a nerf Ace of Spades. So there you go. That's pretty fun. And they also mentioned Icebreaker from Destiny 1. And they also teased in here that it sounds like the upcoming dungeon, which I'm going to guess is maybe in episode 2. The exotic from that dungeon is going to be Icebreaker. So that is pretty big. Gonna be curious about how they make updates to that. It's, you know, I know in Destiny 1 it regenerated ammo freely, so I don't think it's gonna be something like that crazy. Like the Destiny 2 version will probably be different for sure. So we'll just have to see what they plan to do with that and how they bring that back to the game. But, you know, it sounds like there are maybe some other plans with, you know, some celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Destiny. because I was a little fearful. I'll admittedly say I saw some of this leaked a little while ago, and I did see it mentioned, and I was just kind of like, oh, it's just an armor set and a title. That seems like, a little weak compared to previous years. I know obviously a lot of changes and things and layoffs probably maybe shifted this around, but it sounds like episode 2 in general might have more stuff throughout it to celebrate the 10 years of Destiny. Like it sounds like we're gonna be getting this armor on the day of in this title, but then maybe in October when we get the dungeon with episode 2, who knows, maybe that dungeon is maybe themed around a Destiny 1 thing. It's like a new dungeon that way. Maybe we'll have some other stuff that is going to be part of that episode that is going to be a celebration of Destiny 1 in some interesting and cool way. We'll have to see. Maybe a reprised raid, I don't know, maybe other stuff. I really don't know that stuff. We'll just have to see, but that's cool to hear. There might be more to them celebrating Destiny 1. It's 10 years. And again, this is across the board, all this stuff definitely brought some positive vibes back. I'm curious to see other creators and other people's in the community's reactions to the reading through this stuff. It all sounds really good to me as somebody who plays a lot personally, so I don't know if other people are feeling positive or not. Who knows? We'll just have to see. But now we know Destiny 2 has a future with this content going into next year, obviously with into Frontiers, and then Frontiers already has plans going into 2026. So they have plans for the future of Destiny. I think that was a lot of what people were worried about. It just hopes that a lot of these changes excite people and are hopefully enough to have people at least playing for a little bit while, or maybe I think it's okay to be like, hey, maybe this stuff all sounds awesome, so maybe it's time to maybe take a little break and come back when we see all this stuff kind of more fleshed out and when it's coming to the game. I think that's what a lot of people are going to end up doing, and I think me to a certain extent myself personally, what I'll probably do a little bit here, I still probably will play through some of the episodic content, but a lot of my feelings and eyes are on this Frontier stuff now more than ever. Now that we're getting a little bit more details about this finally, and I'm excited. So that's where I'm at. Thanks for sticking with me through this long, Mike reads through some blogs and rambles a bit video. I'm sure it's longer than I wanted it to be already, but hey, that's what happens when they drop 4 or 5 blogs at once. Thanks everybody for watching, hanging out with me on the channel. I'll definitely talk about whatever other Destiny stuff comes up in the future in videos like this or more edited videos. I have other plans for other games coming up soon here, talking about them and stuff like that on the channel as well. But feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.